You know that feeling when you're in a crowd and you just get completely swept away by the moment? That sense of losing yourself in a shared energy? Well, today we're going to unpack that exact feeling, but we're going to start in a pretty weird place with the simple, satisfying fizz of a bubble. All right, let's get into it. You probably remember something like this from high school chemistry, right? You take a simple acid, mix it with a carbonate, and you get water, a salt, and boom, carbon dioxide gas. That really intense bubbling, that's what chemists call brisk effervescence. And that little fizz is our starting point for a really, really big idea. So, here it is. This is the central question for this whole explainer. What on earth could possibly connect a fizz happening in a glass beaker to the massive pulsing energy of 30,000 people at a concert? It sounds like a stretch, I know, but the basic principles are shockingly similar. Let's break it down. To get why a huge crowd feels the way it does, we first have to understand the whisper of a single bubble. Seriously, we have to zoom all the way in and look at the basic physics that lets a fizz even happen in the first place. It all starts with this thing called supersaturation. Just imagine a liquid that's been forced to hold way more dissolved gas than it's comfortable with. It's totally overloaded, unstable. It's just packed with potential energy, basically waiting for any excuse to let it all go. This state is absolutely essential for any kind of fizz. So all that stored up energy needs a trigger to be released, and that trigger is called nucleation. This is literally the moment a bubble is born. It's a tiny event happening at a specific spot, like a microscopic imperfection or a speck of dust, that lets all those crowded gas molecules finally find each other, team up, and pop into existence as a brand new bubble. But a bubble's life is a constant struggle. The second it's born, it's got an enemy: Laplace pressure. This is basically the force of the liquid's own skin, its surface tension, trying to squeeze the bubble and crush it back into nothing. For a bubble to actually grow and rise, it has to fight against this constant inward pressure. Okay, so we have the life story of one single, lonely bubble. Now let's zoom out a bit. Let's see how millions of these tiny bubble dramas build up into the big show we call a fizz, and we'll expand our view from a lab beaker out into the real, natural world. So it's super important to realize that not all fizz is created equal. Over on the left, you've got that fast, man-made effervescence from our chemistry experiment. But on the right, you have something way more complex: the slow, steady bubbling of a natural mineral spring, which is driven by geological forces over thousands of years, and it's releasing a whole cocktail of different gases. And this quote kind of adds a whole sensory detail to it, doesn't it? It really highlights the difference. See, natural fizz isn't just pure CO2. It's often this mix of gases, like hydrogen sulfide, which is made by bacteria deep underground. That's what gives it that famous rotten egg smell. A little reminder that this fizz is part of a living, breathing geological system. Okay, get ready, because this is where we make our big leap. We've seen effervescence in chemistry and in geology, but what if it isn't just a physical process? What if these same principles, the same buildup of potential, and that sudden shared release could apply to us, to people? And this brings us right back to that wild question from the beginning. Can a group of human beings, packed together, all focused on the same thing, can they actually fizz? Can they bubble up with this collective energy that completely transforms them? Well, according to sociologists, the answer is a huge resounding yes. And this phenomenon actually has a name: collective effervescence. A sociologist named Emil Durkheim came up with it over 100 years ago, and it describes that exact feeling of being swept away, of becoming one with the crowd, where your own individual identity just seems to melt away into this intense, shared emotion. And I'm willing to bet you have felt this. It happens at concerts, in sports stadiums, at protests, in places of worship, on a packed dance floor. It's this universal human experience of coming together and creating an energy that is way, way bigger than the sum of its parts. So, if this feeling is so powerful and we've all felt it, how does it actually work? What are the ingredients? Well, it turns out there is a kind of recipe for creating this human fizz, a specific set of conditions that makes it all possible. Here's the recipe. First, you need density. The space has to feel packed, close to capacity. Second, you need a shared focus. Everyone has to feel like they're there for the same reason, looking at the same thing. And third, and this one is so important, you need synchronized movement. Dancing, chanting, swaying, marching, our bodies have to start moving in rhythm together. When you get those conditions right, something incredible happens: self-organization. This isn't some top-down command from the singer on stage or a political leader. No, it's a bottom-up process. The interactions between all of us, the individuals in the crowd, actually create a brand new emergent system. The crowd itself creates and sustains the vibe. And the personal feeling of being in this state is just profound. As this quote puts it, it's a state where the usual boundaries we feel between our mind and our body, between ourself and other people, they just seem to dissolve. You stop feeling like an individual me, and you start feeling like part of a bigger collective us. And this brings us to a really key idea. The feeling isn't just shared, like I feel happy and you also happen to feel happy. It's what researchers call extended affect. The emotion is truly collective. You and I, through our synchronized movements and shared focus, are actively creating and holding on to this feeling together. It exists in the space between us. Okay, so we've connected a chemical fizz to this powerful human experience. But so what? Why does this actually matter? Well, beyond just feeling good in the moment, understanding collective effervescence has some really important real-world implications. The research on this is pretty clear. Experiencing this collective fizz has documented upsides. It gives us a psychological boost, both in the short and long term. It can even lead to better physical health. And maybe most importantly, it creates this powerful sense of belonging and fulfills a deep, fundamental human need to connect with other people. And this is where all this knowledge gets really practical. By understanding the mechanics here, we can actually design more effective group therapies that use music and movement. We can create more powerful and immersive public art. And we can make a strong scientific case for why funding communal events like festivals and concerts is so vital for public health. And by taking this scientific approach, we can move past these old, outdated ideas of crowds being irrational or dangerous. Instead, we can demystify this powerful feeling and recognize collective joy not as some kind of glitch, but as a fundamental and incredibly important feature of what it means to be human. So we've gone all the way from a single chemical bubble to the science of human unity. We now have the tools to understand this profound, essential human experience. So the final question really isn't what it is anymore, but what we choose to do with that knowledge. How can we use it to build more connected, healthier communities?